Welcome to the Fasthosts Proactive Podcast, Spill the IT. Each episode, we'll sit down with some of the amazing Proactive team and chat through their experiences of the ups and downs of IT infrastructure management in small businesses. There's always plenty to chat about.
Hi, and welcome to the latest Proactive Podcast episode, where I'm joined by Tom and Gary today. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the network infrastructure that's been set up at the latest data centre that opened late last year. And we're going to talk about the network infrastructure architecture that's been set up here, because it's incredibly innovative, very modern, very leading edge. And we're going to talk about why that's a really good thing for the core customer base of small to medium enterprises. But first, if you two would like to introduce yourself, because I'm sure you'll do a much better job of it than I will. So, Tom, why don't you go first?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the Business Development Manager for Fasthosts Proactive, basically the first point of contact for any of our clients. And I'm there to hold their hands pretty much all the way through until they go live with our product. So there was that point of contact with a person from the word go.
Nice, thank you.
I'm Gary. I'm the solutions consultant for Fasthosts Proactive. Obviously, I work very closely with Tom in designing solutions that meet our prospective clients' business needs.
Brilliant, thanks. So one of the things we were talking about actually before we recorded was the difference between the hyperscalers that are out there and the infrastructure setup that Proactive has, and why that's really beneficial for SMEs. So I just wondered if you wanted to just talk through those reasons.
Yes, so I think for those that don't know, when we use the term hyperscaler, we're referring to really one of the big three. So we're talking Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, or Google Cloud. We're a little bit different from those in some respects, but not others. The challenge, I think, really is that the hyperscaler platforms are, they're very, very feature rich. They're very resilient. They are designed to operate large scale IT infrastructure, and hey, they're great at what they do. We leverage a lot of the features that are available on these hyperscalers. So we're looking to provide a platform which is equally as resilient and performant. But what we don't do is overload our clients with features that they're not necessarily going to need.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing, isn't it? Because hyperscaler services can be quite complicated. I think AWS have more than 200 products, and navigating those, particularly for an SME that maybe doesn't necessarily have a lot of IT expertise within their organisation. So looking at the different types of customers that you serve, how would your infrastructure help them if they're sort of operating at a certain level, but then they need to scale up?
So I think when we design the platform and when we design the solutions, we're really looking at the core needs of an SME, which in the majority of cases is compute and storage. Mm-hmm. Somewhere secure and resilient to put their data, and then some form of compute to do processing. And whether that's hosting websites, whether it's providing internal infrastructure for their business. The underlying demands are largely the same. The big thing that we find is that with clients coming from either another hosted environment or an on-premise environment, they're not always sure how much of this that they need. Disk space is easy, right? Because you can see how much you've got free, you know how much you're using. When it comes to things like network bandwidth, CPU utilization, memory resources, a lot of organizations don't have the ability to observe this. So when they're making decisions on how to resource their solutions, in a lot of cases, it's best guess. Mm-hmm. Now, you can go to the maximum you think you might need. Naturally, that's potentially an unnecessary investment. You can go in the middle, or you can sort of go towards the bottom end. What we like to do is, if there's an existing solution that the client has access to, or that we have access to, we can measure some of that performance to give us a better idea. If that isn't available, we need to be able to change those resources at speed and be very, very agile. So if a client has no idea what kind of resources their application is going to use, we tend to spec it towards the more conservative scale. And then as a client enters their UAT or even early go live stages, we put them into a period of what we call hypercare. During that period, I'm still engaged with the client. I'm still looking at how their solution's performing, and if we discover that we need more memory, we need more CPU, we can add those to the platform very, very quickly in a completely non-disruptive manner.
Right.
Similarly, if a client has peaks during their business, so we work with a couple of clients who support the retail industry, so they've got the obvious peaks in business around the holiday season and so on. We are able to scale their platform up to cope with those demands, and then when they're no longer needed, we can scale that back down, so again they're not spending valuable money that they don't need to.
That they don't need, and I guess that's where it's really different, isn't it?
I think the good thing that we do as well is that when we first get to meet the client, we have a good long conversation and really dig into what they require and what they need, because a lot of them don't know what they need because they're not from a technical background like me. So being able to sit there and talk through what they require and actually putting a solution together for them that's going to suit them, and then running a trial before we go, actually that might not be perfect for you, we've got a better idea. But at least we hold their hand at that point and guide them, because a lot of the smaller companies that we're working with haven't got a clue. So they don't know where to start, so you ask them the questions initially, what is this, what is that, like,
yeah, because it's not their specialism, is it? And even if it's something they've had experience with in the past, they're not completely up to date with all of the latest technological innovations, for example, the security requirements, because that has a big impact on SMEs, doesn't it?
And I think they can get like other third parties to come in and help them with them sort of decision making things and stuff, but we're actually like an extension of their business, of their family, so to speak. We want it to work as much as they do and want to get it right for protecting our brand, but also we care about it, which is pretty much what we get when we have them conversations with people and they come back to us and say, you know what, you guys actually do care what happens to us. Yeah, we do. We want to make sure it's right, and if it's not right, we'll fix it, we'll make it right until it's optimal for you and your individual business, not just general.
Sorry, I was going to say that's a level of support that they're never going to get from a big hyperscaler.
No, absolutely not. The hyperscalers have their place, as we've said.
Absolutely.
You need a specific level of expertise in the platform that you're using. With our platform and with our service, you can speak to an actual person. You can't always do that in a cost-effective manner with a hyperscaler.
Yeah, exactly.
And hey, online portals, self-service support, ticketing systems are great. If you have the ability to self-serve and use those resources. But sometimes you just really need to talk it through with somebody, and that's where myself and Tom come in. And as Tom said, we've got very different focuses. Tom won't mind me saying in that he's not technical. He's probably more technical than he'd admit to, but that's not his specialism. Where Tom comes in is helping clients with their actual business needs. What are their fears? What is it that they need to get out of this IT solution, and not focusing on the actual tech itself, which really is just an enabler.
Yeah. So this sort of modern architecture that we've been talking about in the last couple of episodes in relation to the new data centre, how is it going to improve? Because obviously you've employed a lot of modern infrastructure setup, software design, software-defined infrastructure management, all of those elements. So how does that help the customers with things like integrating with their on-premise systems, fault tolerance, all those elements?
So, the entire platform is backed by a technology called Kubernetes. which was developed by Google to run hyperscale platforms. So, Google's infrastructure runs on Kubernetes. It's an incredible system, but actually most SMEs don't need that. What we're able to give them are all of the benefits of running in a Kubernetes environment without any of the complexity.
Nice.
So our platform has the the self-healing elements of Kubernetes. We have the ability to define, as you mentioned, all of the infrastructure via software. So that on the surface might not mean something to an SME, but what it enables us to do is deploy new infrastructure very rapidly. It enables us to recover infrastructure in the event that a client breaks something, perhaps, which again, these things do happen. Because all of the solutions are defined in code, redeploying or making additions and subtractions are a case of editing some code and deploying that to the platform. And we've developed quite a sophisticated deployment pipeline, which enables us to do that. Another really good factor, which again is not really exposed to the SME, but it's a benefit, is that we can revert and we can go back to previous versions and so on. So we have all the benefit that you would get in a code environment applied to the infrastructure.
Yeah.
So we're very agile. And where that comes in particularly as a benefit to the SME is that they perhaps don't need to be quite as scheduled as they would on a platform where you're manually spinning up virtual machines or deploying and provisioning physical machines. We can help remove some of the need for that.
Again, it just goes back to, especially with the SMBs, it just goes back to the fact that I think, like our eye patches said at the last DTX that we did, they can sleep well at night knowing that we've got their backs. So all these different things that we can bring to improve their solution and work with them to make sure that what they need's working, they don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, and they don't have to worry about the detail, like you say. They're not going to know a lot of it because it's not exposed, is it? But and it's interesting, is the old adage with technology, isn't it? The simpler it is on the front end, the more there is going on in the back end, and that applies here, I think, in terms of that.
I think one of our most recent customers is a guy who's just left a job after 20 years of doing what he does and thought, I'll start on my own.
Yeah.
And he hasn't got a clue about this sort of thing.
Because it's not his primary business, is
and
it?
we tell him about it, and it's in one ear and out the other, a bit like talking to me about tech, really. But it is, and he's going, I just need to know that I'm safe and secure.
Yeah, I just need it to work.
It's versatile, and I can do what I need to do if I just ask you in layman's terms, so to speak, and Gary can then provide a solution, and that's what he's really happy with. So he's just not even thinking about this side of his business.
Yeah, because
he's on about growing his business now, and
exactly,
and that's how he really benefits and likes what we have without really knowing about Kubernetes and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that was a really nice conversation with that particular customer, because they came to us with a completely blank slate and just said, as Tom said, I'm going out on my own. This is what I need to be able to do.
Yeah.
And so it was just a list of requirements that were, I need somewhere to store my documents. I need some way of sharing them. It needs to be secure. I need a certain level of retention. And it's quite a nice story, because we initially designed a solution for this client. And as we do with all the solutions, we had a bit of a round table with some of the tech team, with Tom, and we had a look at it. And we're like, okay, is this really what the client needs? And actually we came to the decision that there were a few things within the solution that we weren't 100% happy with. So we basically ripped it all up, started again, and the solution that we're going live with the client is actually perfect for what they need. And we're not afraid to do that. We won't sell a solution that's wrong for the client. And I mean, sometimes a client will come to us with a specification that they've been given by another provider, and we look at it and we're like, well, do you really need all this? And they're just going on what they've been told. And this is where the scalability side of it comes in, is that we can reduce that initial spend until we know for sure what's required, rather than massively overselling things that are far more expensive than they need to be. And that's, as Tom said, we care. These are people's livelihoods. They're coming to us with a level of trust. And certainly in this case, where you have somebody who's leaving an employer, starting their own business, and they are placing a massive amount of trust in us, because if it's wrong, that's the success of their business that will be impacted. And so that's the way we approach all the solutions. These are people's livelihoods. It's got to be right for them.
And with the customer that we're talking about, he is going to be big enough next year, hopefully. His plans are to be big enough, but he doesn't need that now.
No.
So he doesn't need to pay for it now, because he's got 101 other things to pay for. So we'll increase that as he grows, as he needs it. And like Gary says, it doesn't take long to do that, so he won't even notice it. He just has to tell us, or we will even tell him, look, we think you might need to expand a little bit. We'll go back and basically explain to him this, and he'll be, all right, yeah, great idea, guys.
And the clue's in the name, isn't it? It's proactive. It's sort of looking at their business. And
I think they trust us to do the right thing by them as well, by not basically giving them the top range of everything and charging them a fortune. It's like, well, let's start what you need, and we'll just increase as you need to increase.
And I guess that's where, because we were talking about, you mentioned at the beginning about observability and monitoring, and sort of, I guess that's where a big benefit for those types of companies comes in.
Absolutely. We are able to see 24/7, 365 when a client's peaks and troughs are in relation to their infrastructure demand. So, if we start to see very busy periods, we can have a look at potentially what's causing that. Is it just your nightly backup? Everybody has a spike at X AM in the morning when they're doing the backups, or is it something else? And where we're starting to see patterns, we can make suggestions to the client on where they might want to increase resource. And that in turn also gives us the ability to provide them with a certain amount of budgeting intelligence. So if we're starting to see trends, either upward or downward in utilisation, we can have those conversations at a relatively early stage, so that people are aware of what their spend might be over the course of the next X number of months.
Yeah, so you could save them a significant amount of money, and I think in summary then, in terms of why all of this is so suited to SMEs, is the flexibility and the level of service that you get. That's really the big differentiator, because then that has a knock-on effect on everything else, the cost savings, the ability to take advantage of modern security, all of those elements. And
I think it's quite funny, because we started this conversation talking about architecture and network design, and we haven't actually talked about that. And that's actually the key point, is it doesn't matter. Okay, if you need a solution to be available 24/7, 365, we've implemented the technology in the background to make sure that it is. We've designed all of this infrastructure with security at its heart. So you don't need to worry about network security and things like denial of service attacks. All of this stuff that everybody wants, they can come to us and just be assured that they've got it, and leaves them and us to focus on the good stuff, which is what do you need to achieve and how are we going to make that nice and easy for you.
Cool, great. Well, thank you guys. That was really useful and quite interesting, actually, because I do think it's something that we see, in the content that we produce and some of the responses that we get. I think people need that hand-holding, especially at that SME level. That was really good. Thank you, guys. And we will, in our next episode that's coming up, we're going to be talking about security. But thank you, Tom and Gary, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
See you next time.
See you next time.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. You can subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcast, or visit proactive.fasthosts.co.uk for more info. See you next time.